A century-old bridge over the Jordan River was for almost 30 years a border position between two countries at war for almost half a century, the states of Israel and Jordan.
Mr. Ansky?
Mr. Yaanis?
أنا هشام.
Hisham?
No.
Alex.
أهلا عليك.
Welcome to Israel.
Only recently a peace treaty was signed between the two countries.
Glad to see you too.
It took a long while until these two people could finally meet.
How are you?
Hicham Yaanis, a Jordanian Arab and Muslim actor, and Alex Ansky, an Israeli Jewish actor. They are going to participate in the first film to ever be produced together by Israelis and Jordanians, the subject of which is their common father, biblical Abraham.
So you talk about Isaac, I talk about Ishmael. أهلا Isaac.
Abraham was a man of many faces. Abraham, the patriarch, the first Jew according to Jewish belief, was the first believer in one God, whose destiny was to bequeath this belief to his descendants. Abraham the prophet, the first Muslim according to Islam, was the most prominent prophet after Muhammad. For almost 4 millennia, since he embarked on a unique and difficult journey, Abraham continues to influence world history. In the lands bordering the route of his journey, the different descendants of Abraham live to this day. In the Quran it is written,
خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار.
And in the Bible it is written,
ויאמר אברהם, הננה הועלתי לדבר אל אדוני, ואנוכי עפר ואפר.
Abraham was born in Ur. Today, most archaeologists identify it as being located in modern-day Iraq. Ur, discovered 150 years ago in Tel el-Muqair, is located halfway between Baghdad and the Persian or Arabian Gulf, in the south of biblical Babylonia, in the middle of a vast desert. In ancient times, it was a large, swampy region created by the waters of the Euphrates River. Ur was an important way station, accessible by river and by caravan. It was a self-contained city-state, part of the great Sumerian kingdom. The cuneiform script clay tablets discovered in Ur provide us with a vivid description of the advanced lifestyle and rich culture in which the boy Abraham grew up. The clay statuettes of gods dug here were worshipped by all. Archaeologists now know that Ur flourished for 3,000 years, drawing many tribespeople to it. Here the Bible tells us, Abraham was born to his father Terach and his unnamed mother. According to Islamic tradition, his father was called Azar. We shall probably never know how Abraham and his family looked. Nevertheless, the way of life of the nomadic tribes and the farmers in the region, which they maintain to this very day, helps us to imagine much of the unknown. The Bible tells us nothing about Abraham's childhood, but in their tents, the storytellers of the Middle East continue to tell their stories around the fire. Thus, keeping the fire and the tradition alive. One such ancient Jewish-Muslim story tells of a fearsome king called Nimrod, a mighty hunter who ruled over the kingdom of Ur. In some of the stories, Abraham and Nimrod did not live in Ur in Iraq, but in the Turkish city of Urfa, near the border with Syria. King Nimrod was a powerful monarch, but the soothsayers warned him that a child would be born who would dethrone him and create a new belief. Nimrod issued a decree ordering all newborn male children to be put to death. That's why the baby Abraham and his mother hid in a cave that, according to some believers, is situated in Urfa. When Abraham was 3 years old, he emerged from the cave for the first time and discovered the sun, the moon, and the stars, and prayed to them. Then, when he understood that they too had a master, he began to worship him alone.
Today, Alex, you go to a planetarium, you can watch the universe, the stars and planets, which Abraham saw 4,000 years ago, which led him to believe in one God.
Yes, and we still wonder about this dialogue he had with the Lord. How about this? ויוצא אותו החוצה, ויאמר הבט נא השמיימה וספור הכוכבים אם תוכל לספור אותם. ויאמר לו כה יהיה בראך.
And the Holy Quran also talks about the same story. وإذ قال إبراهيم لأبيه آزر أتتخذ أصناما آلهة إني أراك وقومك في ضلال مبين فلما رأى الشمس بازغة قال هذا ربي هذا أكبر فلما أفلت قال يا قوم إني بريء مما تشركون إني وجهت وجهي للذي فطر السماوات والأرض حنيفا وما أنا من المشركين.
In Ur in Iraq, there is also a cave, which, according to the Iraqi Muslims, is the real cave where Abraham was born. In the city of Baghdad, the capital of Iraq, there stands a mosque, which, according to another tradition, is associated, among other things, with Abraham's childhood habitat. One day, when the boy Abraham was left in charge of his father's idol shop, he took a stick and shattered all the idols. Then he placed the stick in the hands of the largest idol. When his father returned to the store and turned on his son in fury, Abraham protested his innocence, saying, "It was the big idol which smashed all the others." "But he's just of clay. He's not real," retorted his father. "You are right, father," Abraham answered. "He's not real." When King Nimrod heard about Abraham's deeds, he ordered him thrown into a fiery furnace. Because of the intense heat, Abraham was hurled into it with the help of a ballistra or catapult. Two of its columns, tells the story, still stand today on the summit of the mountain overlooking Turkish Urfa, above the valley in which the furnace stood, where a miracle took place. A stream of water extinguished the fire. The burning logs began to blossom, and a school of fish appeared and carried Abraham away. The carp swimming in Urfa's Abraham pool are said by the locals to be the descendants of those legendary fish, and anyone who dares touch them will go blind. Hicham Yaanis and Alexansky, seeking a deeper understanding of their common father, tried together parts of his desert route, as well as his way of life and habitat.
ولكن القرآن الكريم يحدد أن سيدنا إبراهيم هاجر بدينه وإيمانه بالوحدانية، لكن هناك اختلافان، ودعني أقرأ النص حتى أحدد بالحرف الواحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن من شيعته لإبراهيم إذ جاء ربه بقلب سليم إذ قال لأبيه وقومه ماذا تعبدون أئفكا أآلهة دون الله تريدون فما ظنكم برب العالمين فنظر نظرة في النجوم فقال إني سقيم فتولوا عنه مدبرين فراغ إلى آلهتهم فقال ألا تأكلون ما لكم لا تنطقون فراغ عليهم ضربا باليمين فأقبلوا عليه يزفون قال أتعبدون ما تنحتون والله خلقكم وما تعملون قالوا ابنوا له بنيانا فالقوه في الجحيم فأرادوا بهم كيدا فجعلناهم الأسفلين وقال إني ذاهب إلى ربي سيهدين.
According to Islam, the monotheistic belief, it was the originally belief on earth. The worship of idols was a deviation from the main line of belief against the idols and against the idolatry world appeared Abraham. The same as Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, came to fight the idolatry in Arabia.
The Second Temple period literature and the rabbinic literature, Midrashim, Talmudim, describe Abraham in a different way. According to them, Abraham, already from the age of 3, fought against idolatry. He fought against the belief that the idols have any power, and he tried to prove to the whole world, already in Akkad, and then in Eretz Israel, in Palestine, when he came here, he tried to prove that there is nothing in those idols, and whenever he came, he preached, as a modern preacher, for the belief in God, and did whatever he could to bring more people under the faith.
ותהי להם הלבינה לאבן, והחימר היה להם לחומר. ויאמרו, הבה נבנה לנו עיר ומגדל וראשו בשמיים. ויאמר אדוני, הבה נרדה ונבלה שם שפתם. ויפץ אדוני אותם משם על פני כל הארץ, ויחדלו לבנות העיר. על כן קרא שמה בבל, כי שם בלל אדוני שפת כל הארץ.
In Ur, known as Ur of the Chaldees, much like in ancient Babylon, one can still see to this day remains of ancient and mysterious towers, the ziggurats. Today, most of them are situated in a closed military zone, and only a selected few are permitted to visit them. In the time of Abraham, these towers were shrines to the Akkadian moon god Sin. Archaeologists discovered that they also served as sites for astrology and astronomy, as well as for the storage of crops. The ziggurats bear ancient witness to the relationship between heaven and earth, the same relationship which Abraham sought to find in a new form, and which was still unknown in the ancient world.
Actually, you know, when you come to think about it, we do not have any proof, archaeological proof, that Abraham, Sarah, Yitzchak existed at all. You know that?
At the same time, the absence of proof doesn't mean the proof of absence. Well, we will keep digging.
What, here?
Let's dig for a while. Maybe we'll find the proof.
So actually, what we are trying to do is to put piece by piece,
like a jigsaw puzzle.
yeah, right, and to try to put together the face and the nature of this man, huh?
Yeah. What was the world that Abraham left? He was born in Ur, which was one of the great cities of the ancient world. But these cities, or city-states, were based on an agricultural, hierarchical, centralized state. A very static society, a very hierarchical society, run by priests, elites. Therefore, there was very little possibility for social mobility, for searching, for finding out new ways of being. Also, it was a religion that was very much based in a temple cult in a certain place. That is, God was to be found in the temple, in the ziggurat. He wasn't, as I think Abraham came to teach us, that God is found everywhere. And one of the great things that Abraham lends us is that monotheism, especially for somebody on the move like Abraham, traveling again and again, he needed a God that could travel with him. Not a God that was in one place,
not a God that was in a thing, but a God that you could find day and night, in good times and bad times, a God who came with you.
ויקח תרח את אברהם בנו, ואת לוט בן הרן בן בנו, ואת שרי כלתו אשת אברהם בנו, ויצאו איתם מאור כסדים ללכת ארצה כנען.
Historical experts tell us that there are many signs that in the second millennium BC, known as the Middle Bronze Age, a nomadic movement took place, known as the Great People's Migration. It affected the whole area of Mesopotamia, the territory between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, and reached as far as the Mediterranean Sea and the Nile River. Abraham, his household, and large flocks followed the route of the nomads and shepherds.
You know, our ancestors, Alex, it seems, they were spending a lot of time moving from one place to another to find a place like this they call oasis. They walked all the way across the desert to find palm trees, and look, they lived on the palms and the dates.
Here's our breakfast and lunch.
Yes. If you have one...
So how do you get them? You and me? We would starve here. Can you plant these trees? No, we need a boy of 13 years old.
Yes.
Yeah?
You have a rope around your chest, around your waist, and you put it around the tree, and you start jumping one step and move the rope up, and another step and move the rope up, and etc.
Yeah.
Till you reach there.
And you could survive on this, huh?
Yes. Temporary.
This and water.
Not in our modern days we can, but in the old days it was a wasted, a fortune.
Some 60 years ago, a Bedouin family dug a grave for one of its sons. During the digging, a headless statue was unearthed. Following this discovery, archaeologists excavated the city of Mari at Tel Hariri in eastern Syria. Mari lies adjacent to the caravan route and was the capital of the Amorite kingdom, a vast empire which, in Abraham's time, stretched across broad expanses of today's Iraq, Turkey, and Syria. The archaeologists discovered here a palace of 300 rooms, which was built by many kings in the course of several generations. In the royal archive, they discovered some 25,000 cuneiform clay tablets. Although the city of Mari is not mentioned in the Bible, the tablets contain names of places and persons, such as Sarug, Haran, Nahor, and Terach, akin to those in the biblical story of Abraham, that were hewn into the stone and clay by the ancient inhabitants. Abraham walked some 600 miles from Ur to Haran, following the Euphrates River. The villages of Haran and Sultan Tefa are located in today's Turkey on the border of Syria. Daily life in Haran appears to have been frozen in time since the days of Abraham. The conical adobe houses, made of clay and mud, are still built the same way to protect man and beast from nature's extreme climate. This is where Abraham and his family arrived, and where his father Terach died.
And one day God told him, go towards the country which is now Israel, and there I will tell you what you should do he did not find it difficult because he was already had given his heart to God to obey and accept his commands. So he willingly accepted God's command, which God did not put in the sense of real command, but in the sense of strong advice, urgent advice.
He has to start from the beginning. He has also, in order to be a father of a nation, he has to detach himself from the place of his birth, to leave everything behind, and to go to a new place which will be the place of this nation. But who will choose this place?
לך לך מארצך וממולדתך ומבית אביך אל הארץ אשר אראך. או שהוא שומע קול פנימי בתוכו שאומר לו לך לך, עזוב את הבית, עזוב את החברים, עזוב את המשפחה, עזוב את התרבות שלך באור כסדים ותתחיל ללכת, תתחיל לנדוד. או שהוא שומע קול פנימי בתוכו שאומר לו אינני יכול לחיות בתוך האנשים האלה, או שאכן באמת אלוהים דיבר אליו והוא שמע את הכל מפורשות, עזוב את הכל ולך לארץ אחרת.
From here, from Mesopotamia, Abraham led his household towards an uncertain future, to an unknown land. In Muslim terminology, this journey was called hijra, or emigration, similar to what Muhammad will take upon himself to do later. It was an extremely difficult nomadic journey over hundreds of miles, while dwelling in skin and wool tents, reed booths and mud huts, without permanent structures for man and his animals. We may surmise that Abraham carried, as did semi-nomads, the seeds of wheat and barley, and above all, the seeds of the religious revolution, whose salient features history would subsequently learn to recognize.
We see Abraham in his travels from an anthropological point of view. It's very important that he touched base in all the major civilizations, Mesopotamia, Hurrites, Egypt, Canaan, and all the way, so that he was able to create a new synthesis, a new way of putting it together. What I think is the essence of this monotheism is putting together is a kind of brit, or a contract, or a covenant, which has obligations not only on man, but also on God. And we're bound together in a way of mutuality.
According to the Midrashim, the rabbinic literature, Abraham prepared himself. More than 70 years he worked, studied, spoke with God, married a woman, gathered more people to join his faith, and he was ready. And when the call was heard, go, lech lecha, he was just ready, no question asked, and Abraham is on his way to Palestine, the land of Israel.
The Muslim sources say that he wanted to keep the concept of monotheism alive. And once he was convinced that in Mesopotamia this would never happen, so he left. Now, it's of course not clear whether he decided to get to this country or not. It seems very far away, but eventually he got here, and it seems that he found the conditions that would enable him to preach for monotheism, and this is what he did.
Along the ancient caravan route followed by Abraham, there rose and fell states and cities in the main as a result of wars. Thus, ancient Tadmor, Syrian Palmyra of today, and similarly other cities were built on the ruins of those that preceded them. Each new city was built higher and more heavily fortified, until its destruction by new rulers. The Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Byzantines, the Muslims, the Crusaders, the Mamluks, and the Ottomans. In our time, they have been replaced by the present-day Iraq, Turkey, Jordan, and Syria, whose capital, Damascus, is also built on the ruins of its predecessors. In the marketplace of Damascus in Syria, to this day, people still drink the juice of the tamarind. The legend circulating in the market is that the ancient drink, made from the juicy pods of the tamarind tree, quenches the thirst, just the same as it did for Abraham during his journey. One supposition is that Abraham crossed the Jordan River and entered the land of Canaan by way of the caravan route to the south of the Sea of Galilee. This is a region rich in religious beliefs. Some 2,000 years after Abraham, Jesus would preach his teaching here. The caravan route continues along the Yarmouk River and the valleys separating it from the mountains of the Golan Heights. Abraham wandered here peacefully along the water sources. The same water that would also carry the seeds of a quarrel, as Abraham would learn, together with his nephew Lot. Another supposition is that Abraham crossed the Jordan further south and passed the sites of two ancient cities on the eastern side of the Jordan River and the border between Israel and Jordan. Herbet or Tabakatfal was known as Pella in the Roman period. It was one of the 10 cities known as Decapolis. Pella was built on the foundations of a settlement of the Middle Bronze Age. The iron workers of Pella later supplied ancient Egypt with the wooden wheels for its horse chariots. Modern Bgerash, the second city, was Greek Gerasa. It too stood on the route to Canaan. Only recently, deep under the Roman and Hellenistic ruins, remnants of the Middle Bronze Age period were found. The city was built high in the Gilead Mountains, not far from the Jabbok confluence to the Jordan River. The Jabbok Pass was the gateway to the land of Canaan in biblical times, and some scholars believe that it was here that Abraham entered Canaan.
Hiשאם, did you take any part in the wars between Israel and Jordan?
I didn't, but my brother did. His name was Abdullah, and he fought in Al-Karam battle and he died just somewhere there. Now I'm looking at the borders here, ex-borders, and remembering my brother too. And he could have lived a happy life, but that's the result of wars.
You don't have feelings of revenge?
No, I feel sad about him. I miss him, but I have a different perspective, because to cross sorrows, over sorrows and sadness, to make peace and reconciliation is better than continue the story of killing. You must go over your brother's body to reach peace. You must go over all your hatred and revenge and vendetta and misery and sorrow.
You have feelings of revenge?
Oh no.
No more?
No.
Your head?
I look at it from a wider perspective. I look at it how silly man could be. I look at it from an international humanist point of view, because it is an endless saga. The killing gives killing. Blood breeds blood, and it will be an unending story.
Yeah.
ויעבור אברהם בארץ עד מקום שכם, עד אילון מורה, והכנעני אז בארץ. ויבן שם מזבח לאדוני הנראה אליו.
Abraham entered the land of Canaan, where idol worship was deeply rooted, on the same site as Shechem, where sacrifices were offered, in the same place which connected mortals with immortals, with the spirits and the dead, where the ancients sacrificed man and beast. There he built an altar to his monotheistic God. Biblical Shechem is identified today with the Palestinian city of Nablus and the ruins of Al-Balata.
Abraham of the Bible plays an important role in Islam and in Islamic tradition. He was considered and still considered the founder of the Islamic faith. According to the Quran, he was named as the first Muslim, أول المسلمين. That means he is the first man on earth who brought the belief of monotheism on earth.
This was a revolutionary concept, to think of one God that created man, that governs all nature and all world, and that in fact dooms everything.
Abraham was also not the first believer. Adam was and Eve were the first believers. They were monotheists according to the Torah, just as he was. He was not also the first righteous person, because Noah and others are depicted in the Torah as very righteous persons. He was the founder of the Jewish people.
Abraham preached for a new type of monotheism, a type of monotheism which portrayed the supreme God as in a human size, not like the idols of Babylonia, or the idols in Canaan, or the idols of Egypt. The Allah of Abraham is more human. He cares for his creations.
He is our father, our forefather, and as such we are obliged to follow him, but we have to regard other human beings as our brothers. We are all children of Adam, and as Jews we are also children of Abraham.
ויעתק משם ההרה מקדם לבית אל, ויית אוהלו בית אל מים, והאי מקדם, ויבן שם מזבח לאדוני.
Some 20 miles north of Jerusalem, in the Palestinian village of Beitin, are scattered the ruins of biblical Bethel. This is but one example where some of the place names and sites mentioned in the Bible have been preserved in various guises in the local Arabic names to this day.
ואדוני אמר אל אברהם, קום התהלך בארץ לאורכה ולרוחבה. ויאהל אברהם.
Abraham, known in tradition as a dweller in tents, wandered hither and thither during the entire course of his life. This was typical of the semi-nomadic existence. It was relatively easy to dismantle the tent, load it onto the backs of the beasts of burden, and proceed to greener pastures. In the Sinai Desert, which is situated between Old Canaan and ancient Egypt, one may still hear remnants of age-old legends, played on the single-string rababa, the harp of the desert. Abraham was compelled to come here after he had already lived in the land of Canaan.
ויהי רעב בארץ, וירד אברהם מצרימה לגור שם, כי כבד הרעב בארץ.
In the desolate Sinai desert, amid the arid vistas, hundreds of years after Abraham, Moses would receive the 10 Commandments from God. Across this desert, Abraham, his grandson Jacob, and also his descendants, the 12 tribes of Israel, migrated in a similar way. So would Ishmael, Abraham's other son, and his offspring. In Egypt, Abraham found shelter, water, and pasture for his numerous cattle. In Egypt, in the region known as the Land of the Dead, high above the river Nile, in a place called Bani Hassan, is secreted the tomb of Amenhotep II. Local legend relates that all those who ever tried to enter the tomb and rob it of its treasures met a cruel death. Their heads, turned to stone, are still scattered on the slopes of the hill leading to the tomb. Inside the burial cave, carved in the rock, an exquisite wall painting was found. It is probably the only depiction in the world of a Semitic tribe living in the time of Abraham, which went down to Egypt. The figures are dressed in colorful garb and carry their utensils and their domestic animals with them. The hieroglyphics tell us how the members of the tribe bring an offering, presumably seeking permission to remain in Egypt. In the days of the patriarchs, the Canaanite elite sought Egyptian wives as a status symbol. Some Jewish scholars believe that here Sarah bought Hagar to be her handmaid. According to Jewish and Islamic tradition, Hagar was given as a gift from Pharaoh to Abraham, as was the custom of the period. From Egypt, Abraham returned to the land of Canaan and wandered about the Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea. Legends tell us that Abraham was the first in many traditions. He was the first man to wear sandals, say the storytellers, as well as the sharwal, the garb of the desert.
What's so good about the sharwal?
This is a very important piece of cloth. This, especially here, it's air conditioned.
Ventilator.
For all the genitals to be cool in the summer.
The sharwal?
Yeah,
this big?
But
it's not for fat men. Such a fat man. Here.
وبعدين, I'll tell you, do you know the story of the sharwal?
No.
In the tradition, Angel Gabriel came to Sarah and taught her how to stitch a sharwal. You know, our ancestors didn't used to have clothes.
Yes.
So Sarah stitched it to Abraham with her own hand. Now he wore it. It was the first trousers on earth. And it's very practical for plowing the earth, for walking. You know.
ויהי ריב בין רועי מקנה אברהם ובין רועי מקנה לוט, ולא נשא אותם הארץ לשבת יחדיו, כי היה רכושם רב. ויאמר אברהם אל לוט, אל נא תהי מריבה ביני וביניך, כי אנשים אחים אנחנו. הלא כל הארץ לפניך, היפרד נא מעלי, עם השמאל ואימינה, ועם הימין ואשמאילה. ויבחר לו לוט את כל כיכר הירדן, ויפרדו איש מעל אחיו.
Here in the plain of Jordan, near the Dead Sea, Abraham and his nephew Lot came to live together. But they couldn't live together for lack of water. So they started to fight, they had to separate. Today there's enough water here.
Did you notice that they separated peacefully?
Yeah.
I hope we learn from that.
Of course, we
And
should.
it says also in the Holy Quran, وَنَجَّيْنَاهُ وَلُوطًا إِلَى الْأَرْضِ بَارَكْنَا فِيهَا لِلْعَالَمِينَ.
A regular person is usually one-sided. And a great man has the ability to combine opposites. And this is what we should admire in the figure of Abraham. He knows that he has to acquire the land of Canaan in order that eventually it will become the land of Israel. But he is also able, this very same person, to understand that peace is as important as land. Abraham had the greatness of understanding that having a constant warfare with the shepherds of Lot is not the reason for which he came. So he says to Lot in an unbelievable generosity, let there not be a warfare between both of us, because we are brothers.
וייסע משם אברהם ארצה הנגב, וישב בין קדש ובין שור, ויגר בגרר.
In the western Negev district between the Israeli city of Beersheba and the Palestinian city of Gaza, there is a mound, Tel in Arabic. This is Tel Abu Huraira, which some identified as the biblical Gerar.
ויקח אברהם צאן ובקר, ויתן לאבימלך מלך גרר, ויכרתו שניהם ברית, כי חפרתי את הבאר הזאת. על כן קרא למקום ההוא באר שבה, כי שם נשבעו שניהם. ויטע אשל בבאר שבה, ויקרא שם בשם אדוני אל עולם.
3 miles east of modern Beersheba stands the mound of Tel Saba, which is the ancient Beersheba, though not the biblical one. No artifacts dating from Abraham's period were found here. However, it may be assumed that at that time Beersheba wasn't a city, but simply a small wayside resting place with a well beside it. This was the land of Canaan which Abraham reached, obeying the divine command and with God's blessing. And still the figure of Abraham remains shrouded in mystery for all of us today. Who was the real Abraham, the patriarch, Abraham the prophet? This question remains open and suspended high above this land.